Okay, picture this. You have a friend. Maybe you are this friend, whose apartment looks like a filing system designed by a tornado. There are clothes on the chair that haven't moved in 3 weeks, dishes in the sink that are basically archaeology at this point, papers stacked in piles that seem to have their own gravitational pull. And yet, this person is brilliant, funny, thoughtful, holds down a job, remembers your birthday, can have a 30-minute conversation about philosophy or quantum physics. But ask them why they haven't vacuumed since the Obama administration, and they'll just sigh and say, "I don't know, I just can't." And here's what most people think when they see that. They think lazy, unmotivated, doesn't care, maybe even a little gross. But what if I told you that judgment is almost completely wrong, and that the real reason some people can't seem to keep a clean space has almost nothing to do with effort and almost everything to do with what's happening inside their brain? Let's talk about that. The first thing you have to understand is that cleaning is not just a physical task. Your brain doesn't experience it the way it experiences, say, drinking a glass of water or tying your shoes. Cleaning is what psychologists call a high initiation task. It requires your brain to override its natural preference for the path of least resistance, plan multiple steps ahead, tolerate a delay between effort and reward, and sustain that effort even when you feel nothing while doing it. For most people, that's manageable. But for a significant portion of the population, that sequence of mental events is genuinely neurologically hard. Think about what actually happens when someone with ADHD looks at a messy room. You might assume they see the mess and choose to ignore it, but research shows something far more interesting and honestly kind of heartbreaking. Their brain doesn't register the mess as requiring action the way a neurotypical brain does. The prefrontal cortex, which handles planning, prioritization, and what scientists call executive function, is essentially running on low signal. It's not that they don't care, it's that the part of the brain that's supposed to say, "This is important, start now," keeps going quiet at exactly the wrong moment. Studies from Russell Barkley, one of the world's leading ADHD researchers, describe this as a failure of self-regulation over time. Not laziness, not apathy, but a misfiring of the brain's internal GPS. And here's the wildly counterintuitive part. People with ADHD often can clean when someone's coming over, when they're already in the middle of it and found momentum, when the stakes feel immediate and real. Because the ADHD brain responds to urgency and novelty, not to abstract future rewards like "I'll feel better later." So the mess isn't a preference, it's a trap, one they're often stuck in with zero idea how to get out. But ADHD is just one piece of this. Let's talk about anxiety, because this is where things get really fascinating. You'd think anxiety would push someone toward cleaning, right? Anxiety loves control. Anxiety hates chaos. But here's what actually happens for a lot of anxious people. The mess becomes so overwhelming that the brain interprets starting the task as a threat. Not metaphorically, literally. The amygdala, your brain's threat detection center, can fire the same stress signals in response to a pile of laundry as it might in response to a deadline or a confrontation. And when that happens, your nervous system doesn't say, "Let's get organized." It says, "Freeze." And so they freeze. And the pile gets bigger. And now cleaning feels even more impossible. That's not a character flaw. That's a trauma response wearing a laundry basket as a hat. Depression adds yet another layer. When someone is depressed, their brain is running on depleted dopamine and serotonin, the very chemicals that make tasks feel worth doing. A clean house doesn't spark joy when your brain has lost access to joy entirely. And what makes this particularly cruel is that depression thrives in disorder. The mess feeds the low mood, and the low mood makes the mess worse. Researchers call this a behavioral activation spiral, except it's spinning in the wrong direction. Some people live in that spiral for years. Now, here's something most people miss entirely when they judge a messy person: the concept of object permanence and working memory. For many people, not just with ADHD, out of sight genuinely means out of mind. If something gets put away in a drawer or a cupboard, their brain literally stops tracking it as something that exists. So the piles around the house, they're not clutter, they're a memory system, a visual to-do list, a landscape of intentions, messy to you, functional to them.
Studies in environmental psychology have found that some highly creative individuals actually process information better in environments that others find chaotic because the visual stimulation keeps their brain engaged and alert rather than bored and restless. There's even a name for it in organizational psychology, contextual clutter tolerance, and it varies dramatically from person to person based on sensory processing, personality type, and neurological wiring, not personal standards. So the next time you see someone living in what looks like a beautiful disaster, maybe ask a different question. Not why don't they just clean it, but what is their brain actually dealing with right now? Because what looks like chaos from the outside might be someone managing anxiety without a roadmap, someone with a brain that loses the signal whenever the pressure drops, someone who is genuinely doing the best they can with the neurological wiring they were handed. And if that person is you, if you've spent years feeling ashamed of the state of your space, convinced it means something dark about who you are as a person, I want you to hear this clearly. It doesn't. The science says otherwise. The mess is not a moral failing. It's information. It's your brain leaving you clues about what it needs. More structure, more support, more compassion, and maybe a system that actually works with your neurology instead of against it. Because here's the truth that psychology keeps circling back to. The way we treat our environment is almost always a mirror of what's happening inside. And the kindest thing any of us can do, for ourselves or for someone we love, is to stop reading the mirror as a verdict and start reading it as a message. If this made you think of someone, or yourself, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear what this brought up for you. And if you want to keep exploring the hidden psychology behind everyday behaviors, subscribe, because that's exactly what we do here.